Pozdrav dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. 15-minutni gradovi, sigurno ste to čuli, i među ostalima i naš glavni grad Zagreb ima već u implementaciji program koji se naziva 15-minutni gradovi. Kažu da je to kako bi lakše živjeli, kako bi sve što nam treba imali u okviru 15 minuta hoda od naše kuće. Međutim, da li je uistinu samo to ili postaje dublja priča iza toga? Zato današnja gošća će nam proći kroz detalje upravo onoga što nazivaju i kod nas i u cijelom svijetu 15-minutni gradovi. Moja gošća je gospođa Lisa Miron i dolazi iz Kanade. Hello Lisa, welcome to our show in Croatia.
I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you, Zagreb. And thank you to all your listeners for taking the time with me today. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Who is Lisa Miron?
I'm a lawyer in Canada. I've been practicing for 24 years. I had my own firm in which I had large file litigation. And I also have an honors BSc in environmental science with a minor in chemistry and a master in laws in conflict of interest. And I've been researching a number of topics over the last year and a half. I'm set to launch a book on one topic. But today's topic has to do with 15-minute cities. A lot of people think that this is just a convenience, right? We're just going to arrange life in order that you are conveniently located, that you can walk to your clinics, that you can walk to your, your food, your library, and such things, your schools. And that is a misnomer. That doesn't capture what is actually going on. And another thing is that most people understand that there is the WHO and that there's some globalist movements through the UN and the WHO at the global level. Few people understand what is going on at the municipal level. And so I've decided that I want to bring this information to the world to let them know just how advanced the coup on democracy is at your municipal level. Mm-hmm. So when you think of your democracy, you think you are voting for your councillors or your mayor in your town or, at a larger level federally. In this case, I want to introduce tab 1, which is an organization called the Global Covenant of Mayors. So let's just sit and listen to that word again, or that concept, the Global Covenant of Mayors. So when I first looked at the Global Covenant of Mayors, it had 11,000 cities across the planet plotted. Now, if you share screen, I'm going to show you there's now 13,000 of these cities plotted around the world. And they are marching to an order, almost like a shadow government, that you do not know about. So it's very important that you look at this Global Covenant of Mayors. Zagreb, are you able to put the first tab up?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the Global Covenant of Mayors, and actually the link for you to find out your own city, whether you're in Europe or in North America or any place around the world, is globalcovenantofmayors.org/cities. And I'm sorry, I have dental work that's going to happen today, so I'm talking funny. And in there, they have mapped out absolutely every city. And these mayors are marching to an order that has to do with climate change that you have no idea about. And they're not telling you. So what we have here is we have, you can find your city anywhere in the world. 13,000 cities are plotted. And you can look, there's the mitigation tabs. And what is that inventory that they're talking about? Well, that's your carbon inventory. They're saying that the carbon that you utilize or by breathing or buying products is the problem, okay? So the first step is for your city or town or municipality to map out what's the inventory of CO2. That's in your food, that's in your transportation, that's in your buildings, right? That's you. Buying clothes, eating, that's you. If you thought climate change or solving for climate change involved a technology or a conversion at some kind of level, I want you to know it actually involves what you do. You're consuming. And the solution that I have found that they intend to implement by 2030, that's not far, is consumptive interventions, right? So you can search any city in Europe. If you're, a listener in Europe, you can search in Africa, in South America. These cities are mapped out. And so who's telling you that this is happening? Nobody's telling you that this is happening. So if you have a democracy that you don't know the issues, you don't know the solutions they're implementing to the issues, and you're not involved altogether, it's not local, and it's entirely global, a global covenant of mayors.
Okay,
now,
Lisa,
no
just a second. Lisa,
yes.
For our audience to explain why they are doing, main reason is because they want to protect our world from the climate changes. Am I right?
This is correct. This is the solution that they are deciding to implement without our consent. We're not involved whatsoever in this deciding on how our cities are going to be utilized, how we are going to have our lives circumscribed or changed. And when someone says there's no such thing as a 15-minute city, well, there's a bunch of nomenclature out there. Vision zero cities mean zero fatalities for pedestrians. So no cars because of that. Or zero emissions. And we're going to look at what they're doing aggressively in the UK with ultra low emission zones. And these are being mapped out and implemented and tested across various jurisdictions. And they, when we go to look at our third tab, but let's go to our second tab. And this organization is, again, a global organization. And it's called C40 Cities. Currently, the president of C40 Cities is Sadiq Khan, who is the mayor of London. Okay, and to just give you a little flavor, he is currently investing, I think it's 150 million pounds to come up with the technology to charge citizens by the mile. So you think he's the mayor of London, but in fact, he's the chair or president of this entire organization. And C40 Cities, if you think, well, the Global Covenant of Mayors, which organizes cities and maps out their emissions and starts putting in these plans, is the university level. This is the PhD. This is the doctorate level of consumptive interventions. And you can find whether or not your city is a C40 city. But not just C40 cities are taking on these implementations. Cities that are not part of C40 are taking on the regimen of implementation. And so you should be exploring that site. And everything is always presented in a very feel-good manner.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked a little bit further. And I want you to go to tab 3. And I really would like us to spend a fair amount of time on tab 3. So as you can see, this is called The Future of Urban Consumption in a 1.5 degrees Celsius World.
Let's explain to people what this means. This 1.5 is temperature that we want to reach. That is temperature that they decided it's a upper level that we can reach. Am I right?
It is. Now think about this. We've had 6 ice ages, right? And between each ice age is an interglacial period, which is your warming period. So we are currently in an interglacial warming period. There is scientists on the other side of the narrative on climate change who dispute the science of climate change. I'm not going to go through that. You have better scientists that can come on board to discuss how this whole movement is being hijacked. What I want to educate your listeners to is that how they decided to go to limit that temperature change, right? The future of urban consumption is through consumption. So you get the people into the cities, right? And then you limit. And you can see just on are you leaving the city? What are you wearing? Right? What are you eating? Right? Transportation. Do you have a car? This plan, and every time I put on social media plan, I get attacked and said it's not a plan. But in the first few pages, the University of Leeds, C40 Cities, and Arup, their authors, say these are the necessary changes to combat climate change. And what I've discovered is that this plan, not plan, however they want to describe it, which is totalitarian, that doesn't leave anything out of the equation, right, has as a goal by 2030 in our lifetime reducing our consumption. So we should know, if we live in cities that are C40 cities across Europe, anywhere, what is being implemented in our climate plans with teeth. So if you want to go through that plan and scroll down, you will see that this is so glossy. It is so well prepared. And when we get down to, you'll see chapter 6. So we're looking through here. And chapter 6 is how we are going to limit that 1.5 degree, right? And if not, we won't get back to that temperature in 1850 on a Tuesday that we need to get back to. So
let's repeat a little bit. We need to explain again. That means they are calculating everything what we are doing. Whatever we consume, they are calculating how much CO2 we are producing.
Can you go back to that one screen?
Of course.
Okay, there. Right. And so, this is why they think, it'll be great. We need to do this to avoid extreme heat and poverty. We need to do this for water availability. We need to do this for food insecurity. Okay. We need to do this for rising sea. Okay. These are the reasons we need to do it. And the biggest one, is food insecurity, which then you're going to see the solutions that they implement. It has everything to do with what's on your fork. So we can go down to chapter 6.
Yeah. This is chapter 6.
Okay, so go to the first part of chapter 6.
Yeah.
So how are we going to reduce CO2? We're going to reduce it in the cities through altering our consumption. And this is an absolute war on GDP. Okay, and there's several categories. We'll go further up on the... Okay, so these are the targets for climate action further. Another page, please. Okay, so here, if your viewers can see, the goal is to reduce the CO2 that is utilized or, that we create by reducing our building and infrastructure. Okay, so this can, right now we're doing voluntary retrofits. This can be extreme retrofits. This can be homeowners required to do all kinds of very expensive renovations to their property, mandatory. There's food. Your food consumption has to go down by 60%. Oh no. Remember before they said, well, we have to solve for climate change because there might be food insecurity. And how we're going to do it is give you food insecurity.
Yeah, we will reduce consumption and solving the problem of food insecurity. And let's remind people that concerning CO2, in the air, there is 78% of nitrogen, 21% is oxygen, and 0.04% is CO2. And people are producing from this 0.04% around 7 to 10%. Am I right?
In some estimates, it's actually less.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the carbon cycle on the planet is everything, right? Off-gassing in rocks. It's your microbes. It's everything in the entire that uses CO2 as part of the carbon cycle. So what, are we not going to be at the carbon cycle anymore? You know,
just to have a clearer picture, that we are around 7 to 10%, maybe even less, of this 0.04. And now we want to reduce this part, what humanity has impact on, okay?
Yeah, so even if we reduce that amount, does it do anything to the other amount?
Just for explanation for audience, just for the audience.
Yeah.
Let's go through this presentation.
Correct. So we have to reduce our food by 60%. We have to reduce, the second one I think is private transport by 39%, how you're getting around. We have to reduce our clothing and textile by 66%. So every area is an industry and a part of the economy that is strategically being attacked, right? So, any kind of homeowner who has to do mandatory retrofits will not be able to spend in the economy on anything. It will be too expensive to live, right? Your food. Well, what's happening to restaurants, to hotel and food administration type businesses? That's an entire attack on that area of the economy. Private transport, you're going to see what they want to do. So this is an attack on the auto industry and everything that serves the auto industry, which is, a massive amount. And is everything that happens as a result of your ability to get around the city is reduced. Okay? Clothing and textile. Does the retail organizations around the world know how much the clothing and textile has to go down by and what it's going to do to their industry? Every single one of these areas is an attack on the gross domestic product. It's a systematic attack. Here's your appliances and electronics. And last, believe it or not, you leaving the city, whether or not your mayor and everybody in the climate agenda is going to let you leave the city, that is also decided. So we're going to scroll down a little bit further and go into each target. So building an infrastructure is 11% of the emissions. And so therefore, oh my goodness, we're going to have to do all these mandatory retrofits. And you're being nudged, right? You'll see, recently they have coconut as great insulation, right? So we got to do coconut insulation. You're being nudged with these studies that, if you don't do these amazing, massive retrofits to your home or business, the world's going to come to an end. So let's go to the next one, food. And I would really like to spend a lot of time on this next one. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're going to go through. Food is 13% of emissions. Oh no, you eating, your mother eating, your grandmother eating, your children eating, the people you love in your community eating. That's the problem. Humans eating. That's the problem. Well, don't worry. This global organization of mayors, this global covenant of mayors, the C40 organization, the University of Leeds, Arab, has come up with a plan. Let's go through. Next slide. What have they decided? Okay, so on each of these targets, they have the progressive target on the left side and the ambitious target. And this is by 2030, less than 6 years away. And so the ambitious target is, and this is equity. When you hear diversity, equity, inclusion, this is equity. It's the equity of communism. It's the equity of the bottom is everybody. 0 kilograms of meat per person per year. Your government is solving for climate change because of food insecurity by starving you. Look at this. They say that, they have decided, to solve for climate change, 2,500 calories per person per day. The kinds of calories they decide, right? When we talk about carbon trackers, when we talk about the ability of them deciding how much carbon you get to utilize per day, this is what it's coming down to. When Visa or MasterCard say, well, we're going to start giving you your carbon dioxide on your receipt, this is what we're looking at. So 0 kilograms of meat per person by 2030. So if you see a tax in the food industry, if you see, there's a new virus, right? We have to cull the cattle. Right? We have to get rid of the cattle in Ireland. I'm sure you know that because of climate change. We have the farmers everywhere.
That's right. Just
protesting
right now,
because of how oppressive the climate change policies are. This all works together. How much dairy does your child get?
0.
Do you get? 0 kilograms, their ambitious target. 0 kilograms of dairy or even dairy alternatives. That's your soy. That's your oat milk. Nothing's going in that coffee, Zagreb. Nothing. 0 kilograms by 2030 per person per year. Remember, this is global. This is your city. Next, your calories. Imagine. They've decided, they figured it out. If you have 2,700 calories, no, we won't solve for climate change. Only 2,500, right? Don't you lick that plate. Don't you have another calorie. So your government is on your fork. I've read history. The tyrants in history didn't have the technology to implement this. Now we have our boogeyman. It's our climate change. And this is your solution. You've already seen the poverty of Europe as energy gets expensive, right? Greta doesn't even like wind. Nuclear is bad, right? So people think, well, how are they going to do this? And I'll talk about that.
That's important, yeah.
But here's 0% food waste. Well, that's right. Because you're going to feed your children, if you're allowed to have them, right? You're going to feed your children first, and you're going to eat the scraps. And they want 75% reduction in, the transportation and whatnot of food. Tell me what your reaction is that we have a shadow government who thinks, this is how we solve for climate change. Your government is on your fork.
Okay,
so
tell
next
me.
Slide, please.
Just tell me how they are going to replace. Are they going to replace with artificial meat, maybe? Because we are already facing, there is artificial meat that they are producing in 3D printers. And this is not meat, really, but it tastes like meat, looks like meat. They can maybe replace it because then we're not going to spend so much carbon dioxide.
Sure. Listen, any government who has this as their goal this type of control of humans is not going to stop at whatever this plan is. Once this kind of control mechanism is in place, it's the ugliest thing. They're not stopping at, this is just nudging us along. I have a Substack, and I wrote in, if you have a trademark, you have the NICE classification of trademarks. Well, they've recently updated the NICE classification of trademarks for food to include all kinds of bugs. Okay, so bug eating, mealworm. In Ontario, where I'm from, in London, they have a massive cricket factory. Do you want to eat crickets? But please put up the one next. I want to go on. After food, there's your clothing. And we really need to look at, and then there's your private transportation.
Okay.
So if you can also put that up, because I think your viewers have to see how dystopian, and they printed this all up. It's so high gloss. And by the way, I sent you the PDF because every time I post a link on social media about this presentation, that link goes down. So they know that when they printed this up, they look like ultra tyrants.
Okay, I need to remind our viewers that Ursula von der Leyen said just 2 months ago, 1.5 months ago, in a meeting of WEF in Davos, that the main focus will be fight against disinformation. Not climate changes, not war, fight against disinformation. And I suppose this what we are talking about, and this presentation is something that they will call disinformation. Doesn't matter that is official already.
It's their documents. These are their documents, reviewing their documents. An NDP MP in Canada, your viewers might not know this, has proposed that anyone who speaks fossil fuels should go to prison.
Can you repeat this, please?
An NDP, that's one of our political parties that is ruling right now with our Liberals, has proposed a new bill that anybody who speaks highly of this, my furnace worked during that cold snap, and my family didn't. You might say, fossil fuels run the economy, right? He has proposed that if you speak highly of fossil fuels, you should go to jail. 2 years, or be fined and be fined, whichever. This bill has not passed. But how dystopian is it that your government wants to implement solutions that you can't even talk about the baseline problem and whether it is a decision that should be made on behalf of humans? That
reminds me on something. That reminds me on something what we faced last 3 years. That whoever mentioned something like vaccines or safe and effective or side effects, adverse events, then he would be banned from the social media. But let's continue with this presentation. What's happening with our clothes?
Yeah, let's put it up. So that's your food. So you're going to scroll up. What's next? Okay, clothing and textile. It's 4% of total emissions in your C40 city. Right? Can't plant some trees. No. Right? You can't reverse desertification. No. Next slide. So, by 2030, to solve for climate change, the progressive target is that you, every citizen, gets 8 new items of clothing a year. That's it. Not outfits, 8. You want 2 underwear, you want some mitts, you want a hat, you want a pair of pants. Now, if they really meet their targets, It's 3. 3 new items of clothing per person per year. This is a high gloss document. This is their guiding vision. This is their vision for us in our cities. And I say the fight is very local. These are going in through climate plans. Okay, whether you're in the Global Covenant of Mayors, whether you're in a C40 city, what you need to do is go and find out your climate plans. And I have researched. They are bypassing democracy. In Canada, for instance, one of the cities, they have 2 people who advise on climate plans at the municipal level. These 2 people direct what bylaws need to be enacted to enforce this. They direct what legislation needs to be uploaded at the provincial or federal level. They direct. So who gives them their marching orders? This organization, not us. Really, we are at the 11th hour on this, and the fight is local, and you have to go into your cities, and you have to understand this plan, not plan. They say it's not a plan. Ambitious target, necessary changes. This is how they solve. 3 items of clothing. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is your private transportation. Now, a lot of people, I've worked in the auto industry for several years when I was in-house, and a lot of people think, oh, well, we're going to solve because we're going to have EVs, right? Notwithstanding, we don't have the number of mines to create the batteries, not even close, right? If we have a full adoption of that, notwithstanding. So it's 8% of your emissions in the C40 city. 8% of that 7% of the total carbon cycle emissions, right? But guess what we're going to do? Can you go up the next one? Okay, so by 2030, right, how many vehicles do you get? How many private, personal vehicles do you get? How many cars? Whether internal combustion engine, ICE, or EV? Zero.
Yeah.
Right? So when you hear there's a 15-minute city, you don't get to get in that car. The reason why everything's around you and that you accept it slowly is because you're walking there. Right? You've got your vaccine appointment, you're walking there. Got to see your doctor for your medical assistance and death appointment, you're walking there. Right? You got to get your bugs at the grocery store, you're walking there. And then if there is any vehicles, they have to have a 50-year life cycle. Now, our Liberal government has just had a gaffe. The Minister of Environment, who is Mr. Gubeau, who was a past environmental activist with Greenpeace, who was even arrested for his activism, has indicated he will not be funding any new roads or spending money on the road infrastructure. This was reported in the Montreal Gazette. And so no new roads? Well, of course not. Now, the one thing about EVs is you can't have potholes because you don't want to damage the casing of your battery. Because once you do that, moisture can hit the lithium and have a reaction, a thermal runaway reaction. But no, a 50-year vehicle, a 50-year body and parts for your vehicle. So are we all our own mechanics? What industries are being attacked? Mechanics, right? Anything that serves the auto sector, that whole area of GDP, that's gone. This is their vision. So if we go to the next slide. Aviation. 2% of the 7% of the 0.004% in the atmosphere, okay? They've decided that you leaving the city, right, is up to them. So they decide whether you get a car, how much clothing you get, what your food is, right? How many calories you get, what kind of food, right? Are we all in brown uniforms? So next slide. So how they solve is that if you qualify through their carbon passports, they have carbon passports. Japan today reported on that 2 weeks ago, the introduction of carbon passports. So they track whether you eat burgers or whatnot if you qualify for a flight. Their goal is a progressive, you get to go on one short haul flight every 2 years, not long haul. And so what does this do to the tourism industry? Do they know? Does all the tourist economy know? Right? This is an attack on GDP. Does anybody really know about it? So then if they really knock it out of the park, the ambitious target is one short haul flight per person every 3 years. Right? So you get to another 15-minute city, right, in your old clothes and go eat the bugs there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is.
Okay, Lisa,
Right.
it's important now to explain people we see where it's coming, and whoever wants to see all this presentation, it will be below this video and can go through this. How they are planning to do this, which kind of tools they are planning to use to calculate our carbon footprint, or make this limitation, or make these fines in case we are breaking it, or what kind of, I don't know, organization they are trying to use to implement this.
So everything is coming in through the cities. The biggest area that you can see this in evidence is in the UK. So the UK is moving out. Oxford, for instance, there's an expose article just this week. They are creating 15-minute cities in which areas in which you will get a permit to leave. So you can only leave your area, your 15-minute area, 100 times per year. So this is how they start. And notwithstanding that, nobody wants it, and they're all upset about it, Oxford is implementing these areas. And what they do is through the Smart City Infrastructure Fund, and you can look that up, they get money to lay the cables under the roads. Those cables are connected to the lights. The lights drop down cameras. The cameras have antennas for the Wi-Fi. That connects to parking, to everything. So they know where your car is. They can identify by the license plate where you are, what you're driving, where you're going. They can connect to your smart meter. So do they get to turn off your heat? Do they get to ratchet down your electricity use? Right? Everything is connected in the Smart City Infrastructure Fund. And that's in Europe. And that's also in Canada, North America. But these plans are rolling out worldwide, everywhere. It's just a different type of fund. But look it up. It's an EU fund that funds the cities. So first you have the Smart City Infrastructure. And then you have a guy like Sadiq Khan, who's running the C40. He's the mayor of one C40 city. London is a C40 city. But he is developing the technology that can work in all these cities with the Smart City Infrastructure Fund. Now, the second thing is the concept of ultra-low emission zones. So in ultra-low emission zones, you can have a blanket 20 kilometers an hour. You can't drive anything further. And they will cordon off areas you're not allowed to go. So then they slowly add the geographic footprint to the smart footprint to the regulations. So the regulations are 20 kilometers an hour. In Bath, which is also in England, and if you want to follow all of that on LinkedIn or Twitter, follow Hag Together, because there's a group fighting back at the local level and they have blade runners, which cut down the cameras. They have people that go to block the cameras. They find out where there's a van that moves around. I think it's Bath or in the UK or in London. There's a group of 20,000 people on Facebook or WhatsApp, and they notify each other where the cameras are. Then someone goes and blocks them, because if you don't have the right type of car, you're fined something like 70 or 90 pounds every day. In Glasgow, they are also trying to fight it back, and they've just launched a lawsuit for Glasgow. If you don't have the right kind of car, you're charged the first time 90 pounds, the second time 180, the third time, and it ratchets it up. So every time you use your vehicle and they catch you and it's the wrong one, well, and remember, we hear from the WEF, you will own nothing by 2030, right? So when I say there's consumptive interventions, let's think of that, the word consumptive intervention. It means we're going to stop you from consuming. Mm-hmm. So the first way I see that is inflation, right? The big spend of our governments has taken the value of our dollars so much that, sorry, I just got to plug that in, that dollar is stretched and we can no longer spend the same amount. So we're not spending it in the economy. We're having a war on GDP because of that. And then the second way that they can do so is they can just regulate, like they're doing ULEZ, ultra low emission zones, Bath, Glasgow, Oxford, and they regulate what vehicle can move in a certain area. So that's a second way. They can slowly take meat out of the city, right? Or once you have the carbon tracker, and I sent a second group of links to you. So link, I think number 4 is the carbon tracker link. But the carbon tracker will require that you put in what you're consuming, where you're going, and it gives you a value, right? And that can also work with social credit. The last thing that this report says is it works with financial. So regulatory, that's rolling out in your municipalities, right? Regulatory, and then financial. So that can be CBDC, central bank digital currency. So with central bank digital currency, you can decide whether or not your money will work on the burger. Oh, you've exceeded your beef today or this week. You can't buy any more meat, right? It can work with where you're going. You can't gas up. You need the right token. And we've been trained with the QR code. So the QR code from COVID changes life legally from a rights-based existence, right? We have the right to do things. We just do it. To a permissive base existence. You need the permission. You need the right QR code. And this has rolled out in China already. And so we are emulating a communist country. We're implementing an equity, right? When you hear diversity, equity, inclusion, equity is the same number of calories for everybody. Equity is the same amount of clothes for everybody. That's equity. So when everybody's a champion of equity, it does not have the moral capacity to stop this dystopia. In fact, if you follow it all the way through, it is still the moral underpinning of a horrific gulag. This 15-minute city stuff is a horrific gulag. And equity is the moral underpinning for it. Like when you need to think about diversity, equity, inclusion, you need to think of what it does to ultimately social structures.
Okay,
so
let's
essentially,
let's wrap up this part. That means they want to protect our planet from the climate changes. They are implementing new way of life, impacting in every area of our life, and they have now implementing tools how to do it with digital ID, with digital money, with social credit scoring, with central bank digital currency. Everything they can use it to implement this policy just to save our planet. And of course, there is one additional thing that can help them. It's if planet will have less people than we have it now.
Correct.
For implementing all of this, what we're talking about, they need legal frame. And you, as the expert for legal things, can you explain us which kind of frame they are preparing for all this implementation?
So, hi, we are on right now, and we're discussing that the EU decided to study in 2017. Your EU Parliament decided to study what were the barriers to chipping the citizens, right? Now, what do I mean by chipping? I mean an RFID tag. The location they want is in the hand, between the finger and the thumb, right here. And so when I was studying this and I found this, I thought, my goodness, they're treating people like cattle. They're treating citizens like cattle. And so the study was prepared, the original publication was prepared in 2017, okay? And it was an in-depth published study examining the technology and the barriers to doing the implementation. They themselves have a section on what are the legal barriers and ethical issues to chipping the citizens. I am going to read it, okay? The legal issues, although other legislation is relevant, the main legal challenges to the compulsory use of RFID chips in the workplace would seem to derive from data protection and human rights legislation. And I'll continue. Even where RFID chip use was truly voluntary, this legislation would still be relevant, especially in respect of data protection. In the case of voluntary application, it would be necessary to ensure that the use was genuinely voluntary and that no disadvantage was seen to accrue to those individuals who declined to have the chip implant. Ethical concerns is in overlap with the legal arguments, and they stem in part from Articles 1 and 3 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU relating to the inviolability of the human dignity and the human body. So we have, they go in and they look at where is it comfortable, where is it uncomfortable, how to do it, how to make it mandatory. And then they say the problem from being mandatory is the Article 1 and 3 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. Now, when we have the WHO International Health Regulation Amendments and we have the WHO Pandemic Treaty, and Dr. Meryl Nass and James Roguski have shown to us that these amendments in this treaty can bypass human rights. They can bypass the inviolability of the human dignity and the human body. So immediately, the concern would be, once you have these WHO instruments, right, then coming live, then this impediment, which they have identified to chipping the workers, and who beyond we will see, right? They start with the workers, to chipping the workers. You can go to work if you have this chip, right? What does the chip show? Does it show your vaccine status? What does it show, right? So why are we even as a society looking at this kind of technology in humans, right? I say the race is under the skin. What we want to do to humans in order to control them is with this chipping. And when I found the study, the idea that, oh, well, we got to look at this, and your European Parliament funded that study, right? I have who the authors are, I have links, and I downloaded the PDF in my Substack. So I find that very disturbing. And how it's going to interact with the WHO pandemic treaty is ultra disturbing. What's in the way of chipping? Human rights. What isn't preserved by the WHO treaty or IHR amendments? Human rights. You, your viewers, you own your body. Any other version is tyranny. It's slavery. It's digital feudalism. It's a control, and we should not tolerate it. So the two legal, this is your EU Parliament mandatory chip implants for EU citizens, the published study. And you can scroll down. I review who prepared it. I review all the issues that they considered relevant. And more importantly, I review the legal impediments. And so the two things that now protect EU citizens under legal issues identified are Articles 1 and 3 that protect your human rights. And if a pandemic or other emergency is declared through the new international health regulations, there is the provision that allows them to bypass human rights, that it is not subject to human rights, is how they reviewed it. So TEDAS, if you are up on that, what this organization does is details all the regulations in the data space, right? Humans as data. We are data to them, right? Humans as data. All the regulations from AI to anything else in order to decide how to monitor humans. That data space works with this chipping of humans as well. One of the things I found within here, which is really interesting, is how freedom is defined. Now, please listen. Health defined by the Commission as one of the future 9 sectoral data spaces. Okay, so health is what? 9 sectoral data spaces. Health is not how you feel, whether or not you can go for a run. Are you healthy? Health is 9 sectoral data spaces, and it currently suffers from a broad set of issues hindering sharing of health data. So health is health data.
Lots of things in detail. People had to go through this to believe it. For the end, we need really to wrap up what we've gone through today. And also I see that in front of us will be additional interviews because things are happening right now. And very soon, this 2030 years will be here and people will see what is really happening. Can you suggest what in this present moment we can do to fight against it? If we are aware that this is happening, how we can fight against it?
Okay, there's two things in the two presentations that I put forth. One is that your cities are creating gulags. The people who are in your cities that are approving the laws, right? These are laws that are being set out in your cities to implement these gulags. They probably do not even know the vision. The biggest thing is to let people know they need to get in their cities. Already, I have one success story at the local level, which is, I think, Bath in England. They are unrolling their low emission zones. Okay? How many people who are agreeing with, this on climate change know that their children will never eat meat? Know that their children will only have 3 items of clothing a year? Children who grow, right? Who knows this? Nobody. So making people aware. And this is our time to get up. Because once this is isn't it for every generation?
Mm-hmm.
We have a moral obligation to get in.
It's obvious the most important thing to become aware of it. Well, Lisa, thank you for your work. Thank you for your presentations. And for future, for sure, we'll have to discuss more about this because we have to wake up people and ask questions. That's the most important thing. If we ask the right questions, then we'll realize what is really happening.
Thank you so much, Zagreb, and I adore the work you do.
Thank you. Evo, dragi narode, podsjetimo se. Zagreb implementira 15-minutne gradove. Naravno, čujemo da kažu to je da bi mi lakše živjeli. Vidjeli ste što piše u tim dokumentima. Čuli smo također našeg premijera da je najvažnije da se borimo protiv klimatskih promjena i da cijelu Hrvatsku digitaliziramo. Da u svaki kutak Hrvatske dođe 5G mreža i da bude sve digitalizirano. Sjetimo se također tijekom pandemije, koja je, kao što vidite, povezana sa svim. Da li su u gradu Zagrebu mjere bile blaže ili oštrije nego što su bile na nivou Hrvatske? Da li je naš gradonačelnik za proslavu nove 2022. godine napravio veliki tor na trgu Bana Jelačića u kome je unutra smio ući samo onaj koji imao COVID potvrdu? Sjetimo se da jest. Da li je i jedna od onih stranaka koji sada implementiraju ovo u Zagrebu, 15-minutne gradove, imala išta protiv mjera koje je propisivala Plenkovićeva vlada? Znamo da nije. I kada uzmemo da kažu sami da se moramo boriti protiv klimatskih promjena, da moramo uvesti 15-minutne gradove, da su digitalne potvrde bile dobre, odnosno zelene potvrde, onda nije teško zaključiti da ovo što smo danas prezentirali je dio zajedničkog plana. Zajedničkog plana koji provodi trenutna vlada u Republici Hrvatskoj i trenutna vlada u gradu Zagrebu. Dakle, nema nikakve razlike između onoga što žele postići. Ovdje ste mogli vidjeti što to znači u detalje. Molim vas, provjerite, pročitajte. Nemojte vjerovati meni. Važno je da se sami uvjerite da li je budućnost koju nam pokušavaju implementirati ono što vi želite. Ako jest, onda svi smo na dobrom putu i trebamo biti zadovoljni i sretni. Međutim, ako nije, i ako je vaša sloboda važnija od njihovih ciljeva, onda trebamo odlučiti što ćemo učiniti, a ova emisija će dalje služiti upravo tome kako bi do vas dovela one informacije koje vam službeno politika ne želi reći. Kada čujete te informacije, jasno vam je zašto ne želi reći. Mi ćemo nastaviti sa aktivnostima u raskrinkavanju onih najvažnijih informacija za vaš život, za vašu sigurnost, za vaše zdravlje, a oni koji odlučuju o tome trebaju nam dati odgovore na neka pitanja i naravno nastavit ćemo postavljati ta pitanja. Hvala vam lijepo na pažnji i uskoro se vidimo u još jednoj epizodi Slobodni.